AITA for walking away after my wife revealed her obsession with ruining my best friend? My name is Ash, I'm 37, and I live in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, where people pretend not to hear your arguments but somehow know about them by Sunday morning. I had been married to my wife, Marissa, for 7 years when this happened. We had the kind of marriage other people called solid because we remembered birthdays, hosted cookouts, kept the lawn decent, and didn't fight in public. At least, we didn't until Marissa turned my birthday barbecue into the most humiliating night of my life. The person she blamed for all of it was Lena, my best friend from college. Lena and I had known each other since we were broke 20-year-olds living on cafeteria coffee, bad pizza, and worse decisions. We met during sophomore year after getting stuck on the same group project with 2 guys who contributed nothing except excuses. Lena was funny, sharp, organized, and completely unimpressed with me. We became friends because we had the same dry sense of humor and because neither of us had cars, so we walked everywhere together. We were never romantic. Not once. There was no almost kiss, no dramatic late-night confession, no wrong person, right time nonsense. She dated other people. I dated other people. We complained about those people to each other. She saw me through my dad's health scare years before I met Marissa. I helped her move out of a terrible apartment after a bad breakup, long before Brian came along. Our friendship had history, but it did not have secret tension. By the time Marissa and I started dating, Lena was just part of my life, like my brother, my mother Diane, and my inability to cook rice correctly. Marissa knew about her from the beginning. At first, she seemed fine with it. Actually, more than fine. She liked Lena. On our 3rd date, when Marissa asked who my closest friends were, I mentioned Lena right away because I didn't want anything to seem hidden. Marissa laughed and said, "Good. Maybe she can translate you when you do that quiet guy thing." For the first couple of years, that was the joke. Lena was my female translator. If I said I was fine, Marissa would look at Lena and say, "What does fine mean in Ash?" Lena would say, "Usually hungry or avoiding a hard conversation." Everybody laughed. Lena came to our wedding with Brian, who was her boyfriend at the time and later became her fiancé. She gave a toast that made the room laugh because she talked about how I labeled leftover containers by date and once made a spreadsheet to decide which apartment had the best commute. Marissa laughed harder than anyone. In the wedding photos, Lena is standing next to Brian, clapping while Marissa and I cut the cake. Back then, Marissa laughed at our history. Later, she treated that same history like evidence. The first shift was so small I almost missed it. We were sitting on the couch one Sunday night, scrolling through a shared Google Photos album because Marissa wanted pictures for one of those digital frames. She stopped on an old college tailgate photo. It was a group shot from more than 15 years earlier. 8 or 9 of us were crammed together in hoodies, holding red plastic cups, all of us looking too young and too confident. Lena had one arm thrown around my shoulder because everyone in the picture had arms around everyone. My roommate was half on my back. Somebody's elbow was in my face. Marissa stared at it for a long time. I said, "That one's ancient." She didn't laugh. "She's really close to you in this." I glanced at the screen. Everyone's close to everyone. We were packed together. "She looks comfortable." She was my friend. Marissa kept staring. "You never mentioned you two were that close." I thought she was joking. "You were at our wedding. You've seen old photos before." She turned the phone slightly away from me. Maybe I'm only now realizing what I was looking at. That was the first time I felt that little drop in my stomach. The one where you know a conversation is about to become something else, but you still try to keep it normal because you don't want to be accused of making it bigger. I said, "Marissa, it's a college picture. From before I knew you." She gave a small laugh, but it had no humor in it. That doesn't make it better. I should have paid more attention to that sentence. After that, the questions started. At first, they sounded casual. "Do you and Lena still text a lot? Did you ever have feelings for her? Did she ever have feelings for you? Does Brian know how close you two are?" I answered every question because I thought honesty would settle things. I told her Lena and I texted sometimes, mostly about group plans, work nonsense, or old friends. I told her no, I had never had feelings for Lena. I told her yes, Brian knew us both, and he had never acted uncomfortable. Marissa would nod, but the question never really left her face. One night, a few weeks after the photo thing, we were getting ready for bed. I was brushing my teeth when I came out of the bathroom and found Marissa sitting on the edge of the bed with my phone in her hand. She looked up quickly. Not guilty exactly. More like she had already decided she had a right to be there. "I know your passcode," she said. "I know." I wanted to look. My first instinct was to get annoyed, but then I saw her eyes. She looked anxious, almost shaky. So I swallowed my irritation and said, "Okay." She searched Lena's name. There was nothing to find. No hidden thread. No deleted messages. No late-night flirting. No hearts. No secret plans. Just normal stuff. "Lena, can you send me Brian's fantasy football invite again? He lost it." "Me. Tell him he's going to lose the league too." "Lena, bold from a man who drafted 2 injured players last year." "Me. Those were strategic sacrifices." Another one was from months earlier. "Lena, restaurant wreck for my aunt near Dublin." "Me. The Italian place by the bookstore." Marissa liked it too. "Lena, thanks, you're the best." "Me. Tell Brian he owes me garlic bread." Marissa read that 3 times. She called you the best. She needed a restaurant recommendation. She could have said thank you. She did. She said you're the best. I remember standing there in pajama pants, toothbrush still in my mouth, realizing there was no correct answer. If I explained, I was defensive. If I laughed, I was dismissive. If I got irritated, I was hiding something. So I said, "I don't want you to feel unsafe in our marriage." That sounded mature. It also turned out to be one of the biggest mistakes I made, because I thought giving her proof would calm her down. Instead, it taught her that suspicion got access. After that, my phone was never really just my phone. She didn't check it every day, but the option hovered over us. Sometimes if I laughed at a message, she would ask if it was Lena. If I said no, she would ask who it was. If I didn't answer fast enough, her face changed. So I started changing things. I stopped grabbing lunch with Lena one-on-one, even though those lunches had happened maybe once every few months. I moved most communication into group chats with Brian and Marissa included. I invited Marissa to anything Lena and Brian were attending. I shortened my replies. I stopped sending old college memes because I didn't want to explain why something was funny. Lena noticed. One afternoon she texted, "Are we okay?" I stared at that message for a long time before answering. "Yeah, just trying to be more mindful of boundaries." She replied almost immediately. "Is Marissa uncomfortable with me?" I didn't want to throw my wife under the bus, so I typed and deleted 3 different answers before sending. "She's been feeling insecure. I'm trying to respect that." Lena sent back, "I respect your marriage. Always have." I wrote, "I know." And I did know. That was what made it feel so unfair. But every concession I made became the new minimum. If we went to a group dinner and Lena laughed at something I said before everyone else did, Marissa brought it up in the car. She always gets your jokes so fast. We've known each other a long time. Right? That's the point. If Lena handed me a serving spoon at a cookout before I asked where it was, Marissa brought that up too. Funny how she knew exactly what you needed. She was standing next to the utensils. You don't see it because you like it. If Lena knew we kept seltzers in the garage fridge, Marissa said it was weird. She helped us move into this house, I said. She and Brian carried half the kitchen boxes. Marissa looked out the passenger window. So she knows my house better than some guests should. Marissa, you were there. Don't make me feel like I am losing my mind. That became the pattern. She accused. I explained. She said my explanation was too polished. I got quiet. She said silence was guilt. I became careful in a way that embarrassed me. I measured my sentences. I stopped mentioning Lena unless Marissa brought her up first. I started bracing before normal social events. I would think to myself not to stand too close, not to laugh too hard, not to look over if she makes a joke, not to hand her anything, and not to remember anything too quickly. We looked stable from the sidewalk. Inside the house, I had started living like a suspect. The birthday barbecue was supposed to be simple. I turned 37 on a Saturday, and Marissa wanted to host people at our place. Burgers, brats, a cooler full of drinks, folding chairs in the backyard, the Costco cake with too much frosting, nothing fancy. She made a group chat called Cookout Crew and added my mom, her mom Carol, my brother, a few neighbors, some friends, my coworker Evan, Lena, and Brian. When I saw Lena's name in the chat, I felt relieved for about 3 seconds. Then Marissa said, "Lena and Brian can come." The way she said it made it sound like she was approving a search warrant. I looked up from the grocery list. Okay, I mean it. I'm not going to be weird. I appreciate that. But I need you to act married. I put the pen down. What does that mean? It means don't play host husband for her. Marissa. No, I'm serious. Don't hover. Don't run around getting her drinks. Don't have little side conversations. Don't do that thing where the room fades out, and it is just you two remembering college. That doesn't happen. She folded her arms. You don't notice it. I took a breath. I had learned by then that pushing back too fast only made things worse. I will not disrespect you, I said, but I'm also not going to be rude to guests in our house. Our house, she repeated, like the words had offended her. I almost canceled the barbecue. I really did. But canceling would have meant explaining why, and I was tired of letting this issue dictate everything. I told myself it would be fine because other people would be there. Marissa would have no reason to spiral in front of both families. That was how badly I still underestimated her. The day of the barbecue was hot in that heavy Ohio way where the air feels like it has weight. I set up the folding chairs in the backyard while Marissa moved around the kitchen in a white sundress, chopping tomatoes very intensely. The garage fridge was packed with seltzers, beer, soda, and juice boxes for the neighbor kids who always ended up in our yard. The grill was smoking before anyone arrived because I got impatient and started too early. My mom Diane showed up first with deviled eggs and a look that told me she already sensed tension. She kissed my cheek and said, "Happy birthday, honey." Thanks, Mom. Her eyes moved toward the kitchen, where Marissa was rearranging paper plates that did not need rearranging. Diane lowered her voice. Everything okay? Just party stress. My mom did not believe me. My mother has a gift for hearing the sentence under the sentence. But she only said, "Don't spend your birthday managing everybody." I smiled like that was possible. Guests trickled in. Evan came from work with a six-pack and immediately asked if the grill was safe, because he knew too much about mechanical failure. Our neighbors waved over the fence. Kids from next door kicked a soccer ball into our yard 2 times before I finally told them to just come through the gate. For the first hour, it almost felt like we were going to get away with being normal. Lena and Brian arrived with pasta salad and a bottle of red wine. Lena wore jeans and a green top, casual and careful. Brian had one hand on the small of her back as they came up the driveway. I noticed that. I also noticed that he looked at Marissa before he looked at me. It was quick, but it was there. "Happy birthday," Lena said, holding out the pasta salad like an offering. "Brian made this, so if it's bad, we are blaming his mother's recipe." Brian nodded. "That's fair." I laughed and took it. "Thanks, guys." Marissa appeared behind me with a smile that was just a little too bright. "Lena," she said. "Brian, glad you could make it." Lena smiled back. "Thanks for having us." Brian said, "Happy birthday, man," and shook my hand. His grip was normal, but his eyes were watchful. At the time, I assumed he was uncomfortable because he knew Marissa didn't like Lena. Later, I realized he had walked into my backyard carrying 3 months of evidence in his pocket. Things were fine for maybe 40 minutes. People ate. The kids chased the soccer ball. My mom and Carol sat under the patio umbrella, making polite conversation. Evan was near the cooler talking to Brian about work trucks. Lena helped move condiments from the kitchen to the patio table, and I stayed by the grill because I had promised myself I would not give Marissa anything to latch onto. Then someone asked for extra napkins. Lena, standing near the sliding door, said, "I think there are more in the pantry, bottom shelf." The moment she said it, I felt the shift. Marissa turned slowly from the counter. Her smile stayed on, but her eyes changed. "Funny," she said, "how you always know exactly where my husband keeps everything in this house." The patio got quieter. Not silent. Worse. That fake social quiet where people suddenly become very interested in paper plates and potato chips. Lena blinked. "I helped unpack this kitchen, Marissa. That's why I know where the napkins are. You were there." Marissa let out a small laugh. "Right. You helped unpack my kitchen." I said, "Marissa, come on." She looked at me. "What?" "I'm just saying it's funny." My mom stood up halfway. "Maybe everyone should just get some food before it gets cold." Carol, Marissa's mother, waved her hand like this was harmless. "Oh, Diane, they're just teasing." But Marissa wasn't teasing. I knew it. Lena knew it. Brian definitely knew it because he moved closer to Lena without making a scene. I tried to redirect. I asked Evan about a job site. I handed a plate to my brother. I told the kids to stop kicking the ball at the grill unless they wanted hot dogs with grass on them. For a little while, it worked. Then Marissa started drinking wine faster. Not heavily intoxicated. Not at first. Just enough that her volume went up and her filter went down. She made another comment when Lena helped Carol find the trash bags. Wow, Marissa said. She's basically the lady of the house. Lena froze with the cabinet open. Brian said quietly, Marissa. She turned toward him. What? You don't think it's weird? He didn't answer right away. That pause bothered Marissa. Oh, she said. You do know it's weird. I set down the tray of burgers. That's enough. Marissa laughed again. Enough of what? Saying what everyone else is thinking. No one is thinking anything, I said. Of course you'd say that. The guests were fully aware now. A few people pretended to clean. My neighbor's wife started gathering empty cups even though most of them weren't empty. Evan looked like he wished he had parked closer to the street. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from our neighbor from 2 houses down. Everything okay over there? I didn't answer. Marissa pulled out her phone. That was the moment my stomach dropped, because she didn't look impulsive anymore. She looked prepared. You know what, she said. Since I'm apparently the unreasonable wife, maybe people should see what I'm talking about. I stepped toward her. No, we're not doing this. Don't whisper now, Ash, she snapped. Say it in front of everyone. I'm not doing this in front of everyone. Because you're protecting her. No, because this is my birthday and our guests are standing here. She ignored me and held up her phone. Look at this. It was the old college tailgate photo. Cropped. Everyone else was cut out except me and Lena. Her arm around my shoulder. My face turned toward her because someone had probably shouted something right before the picture was taken. This was before they were supposedly just friends, Marissa said. Lena's face went pale. That picture is from college. Marissa swiped. And this? A screenshot of a text. Lena, thanks, you're the best. No restaurant recommendation above it. No garlic bread joke below it. Just that one line, floating there like it meant something. She had a whole little courtroom prepared in her phone. Evan told me later. At the time, all I could think was that my wife had been collecting harmless pieces of my life and sharpening them. I reached toward Marissa's hand, not grabbing, just trying to ask her to lower the phone. Come inside, I said. Please. She jerked away. Why? So you can protect her again. Lena's voice shook, but she kept it quiet. Marissa, I have never wanted your husband. Oh, please. Marissa pointed at her. You love this. You love being the woman he had before me. I was never his woman. You think I don't see how you look at him? Brian said, that's enough. Marissa swung toward him. And you? You just stand there like an idiot while your fiancée makes herself at home in another man's life. The whole backyard went dead silent. Brian's face did not change. That was almost unsettling. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. He just looked tired. I wasn't going to do this here, he said. Lena turned to him. Brian, don't. Marissa laughed. Oh, now he's not allowed to talk either? I looked between them. Something was wrong. Not a typical party argument. Something else. Marissa pushed past me into the kitchen, still talking. People followed because people are terrible at not following drama. The argument moved from the backyard into our living room, where the air conditioning suddenly felt too cold and the birthday decorations looked ridiculous. The Costco cake was still on the counter, untouched, blue frosting spelling out happy birthday, Ash like it belonged to some other man having a normal day. Marissa yanked a group photo off the fridge. It was from a housewarming party 2 years earlier. Me, Marissa, Lena, Brian, my brother, and a few friends. She held it up and pointed sharply at Lena's face. This, she said, this is what I've been dealing with. She stands in my kitchen, smiles in my pictures, and acts like she's part of my marriage. I interrupted. She's part of our friend group. Our friend group. Marissa's voice cracked. Listen to yourself. She knocked her elbow into a glass of red wine. It tipped over and spread across the table runner like a dark stain. Someone gasped. Carol jumped up with paper towels, then stopped halfway like she wasn't sure whether helping would make her part of it. Get out of my house, Marissa said to Lena. Lena had tears in her eyes now, but she didn't move. I stepped between them. No, you don't get to invite people here and humiliate them because you're upset. Marissa's face twisted. You choose her every time. I'm choosing reality. That made her angrier. She picked up a framed wedding photo from the side table, not to throw it exactly, but in that wild, dramatic way people pick something up when they want everyone to look at their pain. It slipped from her hand and cracked against the floor. The sound snapped through the room. For a second, nobody moved. The frame lay face down near my mother's shoe. Red wine dripped off the table onto the hardwood. Outside, the cooler lid was still open, ice half melted in the heat. My phone kept buzzing with messages from the group chat and neighbors. The worst part wasn't that my wife accused me in front of everyone. It was that, for about 10 seconds, everyone looked like they believed her. Not fully, not with certainty, but I saw the flicker. The glance from me to Lena. The mental math people do when accusations are loud enough. I hated Marissa for that more than anything she had said. Carol finally found her voice. Marissa is hurt. Maybe everyone should stop attacking her. My mom looked at Carol like she had lost her mind. Nobody is attacking her. She is attacking everyone else. Carol bristled. You don't know what she's been feeling. Diane said, feeling something doesn't make it true. Evan had his phone half raised. Not like he was filming for entertainment, more like he was uncomfortable and wanted a record in case this got uglier. I saw him lower it when he noticed me noticing. Later, he would send me the clip with a message that said, I'm sorry. I thought you might need this. Marissa pointed at Lena, her hand shaking. You came here to ruin my marriage. Lena flinched like she had been slapped. Then Brian lifted his phone. His voice was quiet, but it cut through everything. Then why have you been texting me for 3 months trying to ruin my marriage too? The room changed. It did not get louder. It got quieter than quiet. Marissa's mouth opened, then closed. I turned to Brian. What? He looked at me, and for the first time all night, I saw anger under the calm. Your wife has been messaging me since February, he said. Screenshots, photos, long paragraphs, telling me I'm too trusting, telling me Lena and Ash are hiding something, telling me I need to wake up before I marry her. Marissa took one step back. I was trying to warn you. Brian looked at her. No, you weren't. He tapped his phone a few times. You sent me this. He read from the screen, not dramatically, just enough. Brian, I know you love her, but you need to look at how she smiles at him. Women know. She has been waiting for my marriage to fail. Lena covered her mouth. Brian continued. And this one. Ask her why she knows where everything is in his house. Ask her why she texts him like a wife. My face went hot. Marissa said, that's out of context. Brian looked around the room. The context is 3 months of this. He held up the phone, showing the thread. I could see message bubbles stacked and stacked, dates going back weeks. Some of the screenshots were familiar because they were my messages, but cropped in ways that made them look intimate if you were desperate to believe they were. A message where I had written, got home safe, had originally been in a group chat after a snowstorm when several people were driving home. Marissa had cropped out everyone else. A photo from a college reunion had been zoomed until only Lena and I were visible, even though our spouses had been standing on either side of us. A text where Lena said, missed you guys tonight, after missing a group dinner had been cropped to remove guys. Brian's voice stayed steady. These aren't warnings, Marissa. These are attempts to make me suspicious of my own fiancé. Marissa looked at her mother first. That detail stuck with me. Not at me. Not at Lena. At Carol, like she needed someone to rescue the story. Carol's face had gone red. I didn't know about that, she said quietly. Marissa snapped. Because I knew nobody would listen to me. Brian shook his head. Lena asked me not to escalate. She kept saying you were insecure, and she didn't want to make things worse for Ash. I saved the messages because something fell off. I didn't bring them here. You did. Lena whispered, Brian. He lowered the phone slightly, but he didn't put it away. Marissa tried to cry then. I don't know if the tears were real. Maybe they were. Maybe humiliation finally hit her. But by then, I could not make myself care about the tears more than the damage. I was alone in this marriage, she said. I was trying to protect myself. I stared at her. By ruining someone else's relationship? She was ruining mine. No, I said. My voice sounded strange to me. Flat. Final. You were. She looked like I had betrayed her. Guests started leaving after that, but in the awkward American way where nobody wanted to look like they were fleeing a crime scene. People picked up plates that didn't need picking up. Someone asked if I wanted help with the cooler. My neighbor's wife whispered, we'll call you tomorrow, while backing toward the door with her purse already on her shoulder. Carol tried one more time. Marissa had too much wine, she said. My mother turned to her. Carol, stop. Just 2 words, but they landed hard. Lena stood near the front door with Brian beside her. Her face was wet, but she had pulled herself together in that awful way people do when they are trying not to fall apart in a stranger's living room. I walked toward her. "I'm so sorry," I said. She nodded, but she stepped back before I got close enough to hug her. I understood immediately, and it hurt more than I expected. "I care about you, Ash," she said, "but I can't keep paying for your marriage." "I know." "No," she said softly. "I don't think you did." Brian put a hand on her shoulder. He wasn't glaring at me. Somehow that made it worse. Lena said, "I hope you get out clean, but I can't be part of the cleanup." Then they left. The doorbell camera caught them walking down the front path. Lena was wiping her face, Brian was holding her hand, and Marissa was shouting behind them from inside the house that everyone was twisting things. That footage would matter later. When the last guest left, the house looked like the morning after a storm, except the sun had barely gone down. Red wine had soaked into the table runner. A cracked wedding frame lay on the floor. Birthday plates were still stacked on the counter. The cake was still untouched. Marissa stood in the kitchen, breathing hard. For the first time all night, I stopped trying to make her understand me. She started in immediately. "You let them humiliate me." I bent down and picked up the broken frame. "Ash." I set the frame on the counter. "You're seriously not going to say anything?" I took out my phone and photographed the red wine stain, the broken frame, the dent in the wall where the frame had hit, the table runner, and the scattered glass. Her face changed. "What are you doing?" "Documenting." "Are you kidding me?" "No. You're making me look unstable." I looked at her then. Really looked at her. The woman I had married. The woman I had defended, accommodated, reassured, and rearranged my life around. She was still trying to make the problem my reaction to what she had done. "I'm not making you look like anything," I said. She started crying harder. "I was intoxicated." "You were prepared." "That's not fair." "You had screenshots ready." "I was scared." "Being scared doesn't give you the right to ruin people's reputations." She slapped the counter with her palm. "You always protect her." "No," I said. "I protected you for years. I'm done doing it." That was the first honest thing I had said to her in a long time. I slept in the guest room that night, though I barely slept. My phone kept lighting up. The Cookout Crew group chat was a mess of half questions and carefully worded concern. "What happened after we left? Is everyone okay? I think people need to cool down." Marissa was clearly hurting. Did Brian really have messages? Maybe this should stay private. Private. That word made me laugh once, quietly, in the dark. Marissa had made it public the second she held up her phone in my living room. At 6:12 the next morning, Evan texted me. "Sorry to send this. I recorded about 90 seconds when it got loud. You may need it." The video showed Marissa pointing at Lena, yelling that she had been waiting for our marriage to fail. It showed Brian saying the line about Marissa texting him for 3 months. It showed enough. I wrote back, "Thank you." Then I texted Brian. "I'm sorry to ask, but can you send me screenshots of what Marissa sent you? I need a record." He replied after about 20 minutes. "I'll send them. Lena knows. We don't want more drama, but we also won't let her rewrite this." A minute later, screenshots started coming in. Dozens. Marissa had been messaging him late at night, during workdays, even while sitting next to me on the couch. She had sent him photos from my shared albums. She had cropped messages. She had written captions like, "This is not normal," and "You seem like a good man, and I think you deserve the truth." One message made me feel sick. "Brian, I know this is painful, but I think they are emotionally married and we are just the people paying the bills." There it was. Not proof. Not concern. A story she wanted him to join. I saved everything to a cloud folder. I downloaded the doorbell footage of guests leaving and Marissa yelling near the porch. I saved Evan's video. I took screenshots of the group chat before anyone could delete anything. I photographed the damage in better light. I wasn't building revenge. I was building a record. At 8:30, Marissa came into the kitchen wearing yesterday's makeup under her eyes and one of my old sweatshirts. She looked smaller than she had the night before. For a second, the old reflex almost kicked in. The one where I softened because she looked upset. She said, "Can we talk?" I poured coffee. Talk. I don't remember everything clearly. I do. That's not fair. I was intoxicated and humiliated and pushed to the edge. I set the mug down. "Nobody pushed you to text Brian for 3 months." She flinched. I thought he deserved to know. You thought he deserved to suspect Lena. I thought if he saw it too, maybe you'd finally admit it. Admit what? She stared at me. That she matters more than she should. She mattered like a friend. You turned that into a crime. Marissa started crying again, but it was quieter this time. I just wanted you to choose me. I did choose you, I said. Over and over. I changed my friendships. I handed you my phone. I stopped seeing Lena one-on-one. I invited you to everything. I explained myself until I didn't even sound like myself anymore. She whispered, then why wasn't it enough? That question could have broken me a year earlier. That morning, it clarified everything. Because you didn't want reassurance, I said. You wanted control. Her face hardened. So what? You're leaving me because I got jealous. No, I'm leaving because you needed me guilty more than you needed us honest. She stared at me like I had slapped her. I told her I wanted her to stay with her mother or at a hotel for a few days. She refused. She said it was her house too, which was true. So I packed a bag and left. My brother lived 20 minutes away. I drove there with 3 shirts, my laptop, and a folder full of screenshots on my phone. On the way, I passed the grocery store where Marissa and I used to buy last-minute burger buns for cookouts, and for some reason that almost made me pull over. Not because I wanted to go back. Because ordinary places become strange when your life changes in the middle of them. From my brother's guest room, I started separating what I could legally and practically separate. I did not touch joint bank accounts beyond what my lawyer later advised. I did not hide assets. I did not do anything dramatic. But I disabled shared access where it made sense. Family photo albums, shared calendars, joint email folders for bills, streaming profiles, password manager sharing, the shared notes app where we kept house projects and grocery lists. It felt petty for about 5 minutes. Then it felt like locking the doors during a storm. Before noon, I sent one message to the group chat. I rewrote it maybe 10 times before deciding short was better. I'm correcting one thing because false accusations were made in front of people I care about. There was no affair between me and Lena. Marissa had been privately messaging Brian for months with cropped screenshots and accusations. I'm handling the rest privately and won't discuss it further in this chat. Then I muted the chat. Marissa called me 11 times. I did not answer until the 12th, and only because I wanted to tell her one thing clearly. You embarrassed me, she said as soon as I picked up. You embarrassed yourself. You made me look unstable in front of everyone. You did that in our living room. You're really going to throw away 7 years? No, I said. I'm going to stop pretending they were healthy. She went silent. Then she said, very coldly, you'll regret this when people find out who you really are. I almost laughed, but I didn't. Talk to your mother. Not me. Then I hung up. My lawyer's office was in a beige building near a dentist and an insurance agency. It was so normal it felt insulting. I sat in a conference room with a glass of water I never drank while a woman in a navy blazer asked me for screenshots, timestamps, property records, video footage, account information, and a timeline. She did not look shocked. That somehow made it worse. When I finished explaining the barbecue, the messages, the accusations, and the years leading up to it, she said, you need to communicate in writing as much as possible from here on out. I nodded. No emotional debates, she said. No defending yourself in circles. If she makes claims, document. If she threatens, document. If property is damaged, document. I'm good at documenting now, I said. She gave me a tired smile. Most people learn late. I filed for divorce. Not that same afternoon, not in one cinematic courthouse moment where music swelled and I walked out reborn. It took paperwork, review, signatures, financial documents, and more emotional exhaustion than I expected. But I started the process and did not stop it. Marissa did what people like Marissa do when the story slips away from them. She tried different versions. To her mother, she was a scared wife who went too far because nobody listened. To a few friends, she was intoxicated and provoked. To me, over text, she alternated between apology and accusation. I know I handled it badly. You made me feel invisible. I only messaged Brian because you wouldn't be honest. I miss my husband. You are abandoning me for her. I'll tell everyone you chose Lena. I'm sorry. Please come home. I answered only what needed answering. We will communicate about the house and legal matters in writing. No, I will not discuss Lena with you. Please send any questions through email. I'm not coming over tonight. The first time I did not take the bait, My hands shook. The 10th time, they didn't. Carol called me once. I almost didn't answer, but I did because I had known her for years and part of me still wanted to be respectful. She sounded embarrassed. Ash, I don't agree with how Marissa handled things. That was the closest she came to saying Marissa was wrong. I said, she tried to ruin Brian and Lena's engagement. Carol sighed. She has always been passionate. No, I said. She has been protected from consequences by people calling control passion. Carol had nothing to say to that. My mother, on the other hand, came over to my brother's place with soup I didn't ask for and a look that said she had been waiting years to speak. She sat across from me at the small kitchen table and said, "You need to stop managing her version of reality." I know. I'm serious, Ash. You keep thinking if you explain it better, she'll become fair. I know. She doesn't want fair. She wants you tired. That one sat with me. Because tired was exactly what I had been. Not heartbroken in the dramatic way people talk about heartbreak. Tired. Worn down from years of trying to prove a negative. Tired of being careful. Tired of acting like my wife's fear was a weather system I had to plan my life around. A few days after I filed, Lena texted me. I had been expecting it and dreading it. Her message was not long. Ash, I'm sorry for how everything ended. Brian and I are okay, but we need distance from both you and Marissa. I know you didn't cause what she did, but staying connected keeps us in the blast radius. I hope you get through this. Please don't contact me for a while. I read it 3 times. Then I typed, I understand. I'm sorry I didn't draw the line sooner. I wish you and Brian peace. She did not respond. That was the end of a friendship that had lasted almost half my life. I don't blame her. It would be easy to say Marissa cost me Lena, and she did. But I also let the situation go on too long because I was afraid of being the kind of husband who dismissed his wife's feelings. I thought patience made me good. I thought transparency made me trustworthy. I thought if I kept giving ground, eventually Marissa would feel safe. But some people don't feel safe when you give them proof. They feel powerful when you give them access. The divorce process was not clean or quick, but it was clear. Marissa lost the ability to play the betrayed wife because too many people had seen what happened and Brian had the messages. Evan's video shut down the version where she was simply crying in a corner while everyone attacked her. The doorbell footage showed guests leaving while she yelled after them. The screenshots showed planning, not panic. Some friends disappeared because divorce makes people uncomfortable and public meltdowns make them pick silence. A few reached out quietly. My neighbor brought over the cooler we had forgotten outside and said, "Man, I'm sorry," like he was apologizing for the whole suburb. Evan took me to lunch and spent most of it talking about work because neither of us knew how to talk about my life without making it worse. The birthday cake sat in our refrigerator for 3 days after the party. My brother finally threw it out when he went to the house with me to pick up more clothes. The blue frosting had hardened. One corner had collapsed into the cardboard. Nobody had ever cut it. That bothered me more than the broken frame. The frame was obvious damage. The cake was the thing we never got to. The normal moment that had been sitting there waiting while everything fell apart. When I went back to the house for some documents, Marissa was there. She looked exhausted. For a second, we just stood in the hallway like strangers who both knew where the light switches were. She said, "Are you happy now?" I looked past her at the living room. The table runner was gone. The wedding photo frame had been replaced with nothing. A pale rectangle on the wall showed where another picture used to hang. "No," I said, "but I'm done being punished for things I didn't do." Her eyes filled again. "I loved you." "I believe you," I said. She seemed surprised by that. Then I added, "But you didn't trust me. And eventually, the way you loved me required me to live smaller and smaller until your fear had the whole house." She wiped her face. "You make it sound like I'm some terrible person. You're not a terrible person. You're responsible." That was the last real conversation we had as husband and wife. Months later, people still bring it up in careful ways. Not directly. They say things like, "That was a rough night," or "I hope things are calmer now." In suburbs, nobody wants to admit they watched your marriage explode through a sliding glass door. But the story did get around. Not because I posted a dramatic confession online or tried to ruin Marissa socially. I didn't. I sent one factual message, gave my lawyer documentation, and stopped cleaning up the mess for her. That was enough. Marissa's mother stopped calling her passionate around me. Some of our mutual friends stepped back from her after they saw the messages she sent Brian. Not all of them. People believe what is convenient. But enough people knew the truth that she could not become the tragic wife abandoned for another woman. Because I did not leave Marissa for Lena. Lena is not in my life anymore. She and Brian chose peace, and I respect that. I hope they got married without checking corners for my wife's shadow. I hope someday Lena remembers our friendship without the ending swallowing everything before it. I left because my wife turned trust into a courtroom and appointed herself judge, victim, and prosecutor. I left because every answer I gave became another question. I left because she tried to pull another couple into our private dysfunction and then acted shocked when the truth walked into the room with a phone in its hand. For years, I thought love meant proving I had nothing to hide. Now I know love also means refusing to live like a suspect. The marriage did not collapse because Lena knew where we kept napkins. It did not collapse because of a college photo, a laughing emoji, or a text that said you're the best. It collapsed because Marissa needed control more than trust. And I finally stopped confusing patience with love. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.